I'm Washington Ali, and welcome to Project Become, a project uncovering the unspoken thoughts that stop us from living a life worth living. I'm not here to tell you what to do or who to be, and I certainly don't have the answers. I'm just hoping to uncover the secrets of the world while speaking with explorers, dreamers, thinkers, and creators. I hope we all find something that helps us accept who we've become, and find something that helps us create someone we are proud of becoming. Welcome everyone to Project to Become. My name's Washington Ali, and today I'm joined by a very, very special guest, accredited coach at Zoe Mallet, life coach, founder, and also a radio host. And Zoe is here to break the mold of all coaching with real talk for real people looking for real results. Zoe focuses on helping individuals and companies get to know themselves on a deeper level so that they can move ahead with confidence and authenticity. And for me, who Zoe is someone who is authentic, someone who's open, someone who's fun, who is willing to go against the norm to deliver a message in a way that feels right to her. And honestly, your message really connects with me deeply. And I just want to thank you for being here with me and with everyone else that's watching today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. So Zoe, like my first question within these podcasts is always, who are you? Of course, we have you as a professional woman, and of course, I've given my interpretation, but how do you see yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I see myself as somebody who most of the time has a lot of energy and always likes to try and have a laugh, like in any situation that I'm put in, whether that's like professional or personal. I've always been brought up that you just got to try and laugh stuff off, and comedy is sometimes the best way through the highs and the lows of life. So I'm always trying to make light in situations. I'm always trying to make people laugh. I'm always trying to like welcome people and just get to know people really. Like I chat to people, the security guard at co-op. I chat to people like when I'm crossing the road. I chat to people if I'm in a coffee shop. So I'm a very, very curious person in that sense. And I'm always interested to like learn more about somebody and their background and the challenges they've been through, the things that they find funny, the things that they don't find funny. And I really pride myself on having like good people around me and also being that good person that I can be around other people. So that's me, like personally, I guess. And then, professionally, I'm a coach. I trained to be a coach 3 years ago, and I launched my business about a year ago now, which is really exciting. A year and 3 months ago. And I'm also a radio host. I have a show on Foundation FM called Cut the Bullshit. And I invite on different psychotherapists, psychoanalysis, different coaches, different kind of professionals, mental health practitioners. And basically listeners send in their problems and we answer them on the show. And I answer them from a coaching perspective, and then my guests answer it from kind of like their professional perspective. And it's just to give people an idea of the types of help that's out there, and to help people understand that we all go through stuff. Like, I've not met one person in my whole life, my big age of 30, all the people I've met that hasn't got a bit of a story or a bit of a journey. And sometimes when you are maybe struggling or you're going through something, you can feel quite like alone and isolated and feel that like you're a bit weird, or that maybe like you don't think anyone else thinks that. So my show is just about like shining light on all of the issues that people have, to help people understand that there's actually somebody else that is probably going through something similar, or something um, something like an experience that you're going through as well.
Mm.
So that's my radio show. It's still part of my brand. Like, my brand is coaching. My brand is kind of helping people. Um, I like to help. The coach that I am is my kind of main aim is to help people get to really know themselves, because I believe that a lot of us know ourselves surface level, and we
Yes.
don't know ourselves on a deep enough level. And that is simply because we're just not taught it. Like, we're not taught in school. We're not, we're not usually taught um, by our parents. The generation that my parents are anyway, um, are as aware as maybe what we are aware of, kind of self-awareness and self-belief, and I think that has caused just a lot of people not really understanding their behaviours, their thought patterns, and that can be quite detrimental. So my whole aim is helping people get to know themselves, and I do that through my coaching uh, personal clients, and then also coaching like businesses and helping teams get to know each other a little bit better, get their teams to know their values, the team's values, the team's goals better. And then that trickles down to the content I put out. I create a lot of content just to help people think about things a little bit differently. And that's me.
This a woman with many hats, many hats. It's absolutely amazing. And do you know what? I want to touch on your content because your content is super quirky. But I'm gonna put that there, put that in the space, because if I don't get back to it, please push me to get back into it. I want to focus on how did you become the person you are right now? So who did you used to be? And obviously I'd love the details, but I also want the meta-analysis of who you used to be as well, so that people can really hear the clarity and your understanding of yourself as well, of course. And then, of course, we want the source, we want the juice, we want the story. Yeah.
That's a really good question. And that's actually come at a good time in my life, that question, because up until about 2.5 years ago, I was quite a different person to who I am today. And I was actually talking to some of my best friends about this. I was like, I feel like I changed quite a lot in a good way. And they were like, you definitely have, and like, you can tell that you are focusing more on yourself, and you're more present, and you're focusing on your friendships a little bit more, and you seem to be slowing down with things. But they, like, you've always been Zoe. Like, I've always been like I said, like, quite jokey. I've always been like high energy, like the life and soul of the party. Like, that's always been me. Like, I've always been like a bit of a mother hen, like looking after everybody, making sure everyone's good, wanting to just always have a good time, and always been quite focused and driven. But I would say that up until about 2.5 years ago, and there's like a couple of things that happened in my life, which I'll go into, I now look back, and I think I was in survival mode for quite a few years. And I feel like when you're in survival mode, you don't really know that you're in it, because it's just the norm, and you're just every day you're just trying to like get through. And that's very much how I used to live. It used to be a case of I was ready, like I was thinking about the day finishing, and I was thinking about how quickly I can make tomorrow happen, and then how quickly I can make the weekend happen. And that was my mindset, and it was very like not being present, not really focusing too much like on myself. I was doing that surface level. I don't think I was respecting the amazing people I had around me. I was doing it surface level, but I wasn't doing it kind of like at deep level. And it wasn't until I knew that there wasn't something quite right. Like, I changed quite a lot. I changed quite a lot over like 2019, and people had noticed that I'd kind of changed, and I got quite distant. but different things were happening. And in 2019, my mum she's in recovery now, but she was an alcoholic. So she was really ill over 2019, and I'm talking like in and out of rehabs. She was arrested. I had to like carry her to A&E once. It was like a whole mess, and that really like took a lot out of me. But because of like the role I've always played in my family since I was little, it was always like my job to kind of like look after her and make sure that she was okay.
Okay.
And I think that year especially, I was even more survival mode. It was also the same year that I started training to be a coach. So that was really intense. Coaching kind of saved me though as well during that time. But I did a really intense course. It was 7 months in an academy. So, and I was also working a full-time job. And I had a new job. And you know when you've just started a job and it's just like everything's quite intense. You want to like make really good impression.
Literally.
Things take longer. So I started a new job. My mum was really, really ill. She lives in Bristol and I live in London, and I was having to go back to Bristol all the time to sort everything out. Anybody that's been around an alcoholic or any form of an addict, like, it's extremely draining. And it just takes so much out of you. But that was all happening in that year. I moved in with my now ex at that point, and I was living in South London, and I'd moved to East. So I didn't know anybody, and it was like East, like Hackney Wick, and there was, the environment I moved into, I kind of knew that it wasn't the best place for me, but I just kind of did it anyway.
What was that you did?
So I knew that moving in with my ex to this place wasn't the right thing for me.
Oh, okay.
I kind of felt it, but I didn't like tap into that at all. Just do it, like whatever. And so I was in this environment. I was really enjoying it. I started this course. My mum was really ill. That was all happening, and then me and my ex broke up, and that was like quite a traumatic time. And my mum again was just still really ill, and I think at that point that was one of like the lowest moments of my whole life. I just felt so lost. I didn't know who I was. I was really scared that I'd got to this point where I really didn't know who I was. Like, that's what really scared me the most. Like the fact that I didn't even really recognise myself. And I was talking to one of my bestest friends who I've been friends with since I was 16. And he had said to me, he was like, "Oh, you know, we knew that there was something right with you." And I came to that flat and I'd sat you down and I said to you, like, "Are you sure you're okay? You don't see it." And you just said to me, "Yeah, I'm fine." And apparently, and I don't even remember this, which is the scariest thing. And he was like, "So, you know, you can tell me if something's not right. Like, we can tell you're not. I don't think you're okay." And I was like, "No, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine here. Like, I'm fine." And he was like, "Okay, like if you know anything happens and you need me, you can just shout me." And I don't even really remember somebody like having that conversation with me.
Wow.
Which kind of like that really scared me, and he told me that, and I was like, I don't remember that. And he was like, "Oh," he's like, "I drove to your house. Like, I was calling you. I was saying I was outside, and you came out." I was like, "I don't remember that." And that is what scared me, that I didn't know that. And also, actually, my brother has come to visit me. And me and my brother aren't that close. We were really close when we were little, but we just were quite different. And he went home that night, apparently, and my mum was like, "Oh, how was it?" And he was like, "It was okay, but I don't think she's happy. I don't think that's going to last."
Whoa.
And like, that's my brother who I'm not close with at all. And my mum told me that after I'd broken up with my ex, and I was like, "How come all these people seen I wasn't myself? I knew that I didn't feel quite right. I didn't know what to do.
Ooh.
I just kind of like, I didn't know, I just obviously didn't know what to do." And reflecting back, like there were days when like my ex would go out and like I would get back into bed and like sleep, and I would just sleep for a Saturday, and like that is just so far from like who I ever thought I was. And it didn't, it took that breakup, and it took my mum being really ill but then for me to just feel really kind of like really lost, really at what bottom. But coming out of that relationship, it just gave me like quite a lot of freedom. And I kind of felt at that point, I was like, I don't ever want to feel that lost ever again. Like, and I know we all go through lots of different things, and you can never tell what's going to happen. You don't know what's around. You don't know what's going to happen this evening. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, something can come and change your life like that, right? And I fully understand that. But
Yeah.
I think if you feel quite confident in yourself, and you know yourself to a certain level, there's only so much that thing can affect you. And I think I remember just sitting there. I felt so lost and I felt so scared. I didn't know who I was. I was like, I'm on a mission to never ever feel like that again.
Yeah.
And my mission was to just make sure that I felt really happy and content and like strong in myself. And then that was a 2.5 year journey to where I am now. And through lots of different work, through like coaching, I had a coach, I was studying coaching at the time. I was in therapy. I started going to the gym. I started to be really careful around like the people I was around. And I also started to stop maybe putting on a bit of a front and actually just like enjoying things for like what they were, and being a bit more present, and trying to show up as like a better friend, and trying to show up as like a better daughter and a better sister. And I was just reading psychology books constantly, any podcast. I was like, anything that I think is going to make me feel better, I was like, I'm listening to it.
You're there.
And through all of that, I think I just learned a lot about feelings. I learned a lot about behaviors. I learned a lot about attachment styles. I learned a lot about what happens, in the first 4 to 6 years of your life, and actually how impressionable you are. And maybe the reason why you feel like this or you act like this is because a parent has done this. So I started learning all of that. And I started to kind of like piece together how I'd got to the point where I was at. 2.5 years. There's a lot of healing that kind of like went into that. A lot of like uncomfortable conversations with people. Not actually really like quite dark times, like quite sad times. And now I'm in a place where.
Wait, before you get hop into the now, right? I want to touch into the idea of, because like for me, I had a very similar moment of, I went through like, listen, I am never going to be homeless. I am never going to be destitute. I am never going to be a person who cannot provide for myself and also for the people that I care about. What I would love to hear from you is like, do you think it's important for people to hit the stage of desperation? Do you think that everyone needs to hit that, or is it only, I guess, us unlucky / lucky people, or like what do you think about that whole entire process, that actually, we hit a wall and through that wall we kind of had a rebirth?
I think it's really interesting, right? Because, and I often think about this question, I'm like, do people need to go through trauma to experience a different, more appreciative life for themselves? Or can people just be taught this? And I feel like it's really hard because like some of the things that have happened to me, not just those two things, not some of the stuff that's happened to me. I look back and I'm like, I just really wish that wouldn't have happened, because then I would feel like this or I would feel like that. But all the bad things that have happened, yeah, they suck. But it taught me so much. And I think I was that kind of person at that time anyway, that needed to be pushed and needed to be like, you know what, actually, you're obviously not doing this for yourself and led in bed asleep on a Saturday all day, telling everyone you're fine. Like, no, do you know what, we're going to take these two things away from you, and you're going to then be on your own, and you're actually going to have to get yourself better. I felt like that was needed for me at that point. I do believe that you can learn to be really appreciative and grateful and learn lots of stuff about yourself and not have to have something maybe bad happen to you. However, the most interesting people I've ever met have had some sort of trauma and they've experienced something. They've experienced some sort of injustice. They've experienced small T trauma, big T trauma. They are the people that always seem to be able to give me a lot of wisdom, give me a lot of hope, are very appreciative, are very grateful, and so I think there is beauty in that. Like there's beauty in going through a bit of hardship. So I think it does change you. It changes you. Sometimes, unfortunately, it can change people for the worse, obviously. And sometimes it is a case of being. If you have had something bad happen to you, there's a lot of privilege that comes with that because there's a lot of privilege that some people have access to and some people don't. But I don't think. I think if people were more in tune and more open, then we'd have to experience some hardship to really understand the world. But I do think if you have experienced hardship, then I wholeheartedly believe that you will get more out of life.
Yeah.
And you will, things will just feel a bit more richer to you.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. I think I want to put a caveat here. I don't think you're promoting hardships or anything like that. You're promoting, promoting enduring pain, enduring struggle, and being able to see, I guess, the brighter side of things. Because I know a few people who've had tough things happen to them, and they've slipped into darkness. They slipped into that. They've fed off the pain rather than feeding off the lesson. And I guess, what do you have to say to feeding off the lesson rather than feeding off the pain?
It's really hard again because I think if I think about my own journey, I'm extremely privileged in so many ways that would have helped my journey. I was able to pay for a therapist, for example. I was able to, and I'm also really outgoing. And I think there's a lot of privilege with extroverts than there are with some introverts. I am literally I feel awful. I'm heartbroken. I'm traumatized by this. Can you tell me how to get better? I have that, and that definitely helped when I was really low because I wore my heart on my sleeve and I was telling people I wasn't feeling good and I was reaching out to people on Instagram. I was messaging loads of therapists. I was doing this. I was doing that. I was going and buying these books. And I think there's a lot of privilege in that. And that helped me get to where I am today. And my journey, potentially is going to be a lot easier than somebody else's. So I fully respect that. And I think feeding off, did you say feeding off the negative part of it, learning and then feeding off the pain and then learning off the positive?
Yeah, lessons. Literally.
Yeah. So I think you have to get to a point, no matter what position you're in, and you have to just say to yourself, I can either now decide to think in this way, and I can try and hope and think for something better for myself. Because unfortunately, in this life, you are pretty much on your own. You can have amazing parents, you can have loads of sisters, loads of friends. They can only help you to a certain extent, and most of it you have to do on your own. You come into this world on your own, you leave this world on your own, and you are basically on your own the whole time. And when I say on your own, you're in your own head, you're in your own thoughts. You can you're the one who has to live with yourself, right? So I think there does come a point where we have to be really honest with ourselves, and that's how I was with me. And I was I'm not happy. I don't like who I am. I'm scared of who I was and who I am now. And there were definitely decisions at that point I could have made that would have probably kept me on the track that I was on. And you know, some of those were very appealing. Like, and you know, and I did spark interest. Like, maybe I could just do this, and for me, like, just to be really honest, like, that was quite recently after I'd broken up with my ex. There was somebody else who kind of came on the scene, and I could see myself falling into the patterns I'd fallen into before. And I was like, oh, it'd be fine if I just like start like linking this guy, like it'd be calm, and then that was a distraction.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like I had to make that decision there. And then I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually just going to like focus on myself, because I know that otherwise I'm potentially going to end up in the same way in a couple of years' time. I'm not actually going to know who I am. So
Powerful.
in those moments, I think you have to make a decision that you might not want to make, but that actually is going to be best for you. And I think that can feel really lonely as well, because you have to make that decision no matter how much help you have, no matter how many people you have around you. Like, and if you just use my mum as an example, who was an alcoholic, like she had me, she had my brother, she had my dad, she had her friends who were trying to help her. She was really lucky to get into like day rehab, so she was going in and out of day rehab. She had like she didn't have all the resources for the NHS. It's pretty shocking when it comes to addictions. But there were some resources there, but nothing worked. Like, it wasn't until she decided that she wanted to make a change that she was able to make that change. And I think that goes for anybody who is in any type of hardship. Like, you can either, it will eat you alive unless you decide and try and push through and try and think, actually, I'm not going to let this eat me alive anymore. I need to try and move forward to it. And I think people get to that point in different ways and get to that point in different stages, and it's really not easy. You know, some people coast through life, some people don't. If you're one of those people who don't coast through life, then I think you just have to accept that sometimes and just think, okay, I'm not going to let that overpower me. I'm actually going to decide how I actually want to handle this and kind of take it back, a little bit more control from it. And then I think once you're in that mindset, then you can be like, okay, actually, what can I learn from this? And this was really shit, and it was horrible, and I wish it never happened to me. But okay, what can I do with it? Because that's the unfortunate thing as well. If you have experienced any hardship, any type of trauma, like, you're the person left with it, having to deal with it.
Yeah.
Not the person who maybe caused it to you, or you know, the external factors involved in it. Like, unfortunately, that's the shitty part of this life, is that you have to be like, I'm left with this now, what am I going to do with it? And if you're able to kind of, in that moment, think, okay, I'm going to really try and not let this sabotage my time here on this planet, then I think that's a really good place to like aim to get to. And then I think you can think about, okay, what can I learn from this? I think that first step is like, how do I get to this point when I really want to make myself believe that I'm going to try and move forward like from this.
Powerful. That's amazing. And like, your perfect segue into my next question, which is really just around, what does it actually look like to work on yourself? And I'd love for you to speak on it generally, and then also, if you will, personally, like what you personally had to do. And I know you've already mentioned getting a coach and self-awareness and understanding yourself, but what does it actually even mean to understand yourself? Because so many people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, I just need to get to know myself better and just like love myself, and no one knows what that fucking means, you know. So could you spell it out for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So how I see it is that when you really get to know yourself, it's not like, oh, I know that I like hip hop, or I know that I like eating pasta. They're just doing the things I listen to. It's more like, and you can start with that, but it's like, and you can start with really simple things like that, right? So I like hip hop, I like pasta. Okay, what is it about hip hop that you like? Oh, I like it because of this. I like it because it's poetic and it tells a story. Okay, what do you like about that?
Mm.
Okay, actually, sometimes if you deep it, actually, maybe it's because I I like that people can explain their lives in that way, and I find that really interesting. Okay, what is it that you like about people explaining their lives? I'm just really interested in understanding other people. Okay, what is it that you find interesting about understanding other people? I like to know what this, I'm interested in different cultures and I'm interested to know what my life is like compared to somebody else's. Okay, and what does that mean? And like, it's just like really breaking everything down. And it's the same with pasta. Like, what is it about pasta that you like? Oh, it's easy to cook. Okay, so what is it that you like about things that are easy? Oh, because actually I prefer to spend my time doing this rather than spending my time doing this. Okay, well, what do you prefer spending your time doing? Well,
Mm.
actually, I prefer spending my time doing X, Y, and Z. And that's what it is, to like really like unpick all of the decisions that you make, all of the actions that you make, and really sit and like assess and reflect. So you can like look back at your week or even your day and be like, okay, so I got out of bed this morning, I went to the gym. On my way back, I had a coffee. Okay, cool. What are the reasons that you go to the gym for?
Mm.
How does it make you feel when you're there? How does it make you feel when you don't go to the gym? What was your first interest in going to the gym? This is what is going to help you like really understand the journey to each decision that you've made, because
Mm.
we don't just like reach for an apple. We don't just reach for a book for like no reason. Like we feel like we do because our brains like send that signal and that message down to like our hand more quickly than we can even like comprehend.
Yeah.
We don't really think about it, but it's like if you just sit and ask yourself questions about the things that you're already doing in your life, then you'll start to really understand. You'll start to see maybe like patterns, and you'll start to see um, certain behaviors, especially when you start assessing the people that are around you, and especially when you
Mm.
start assessing like when I'm around this person, I get really pissed off, or when I'm around this person, I feel really happy. I feel really comfortable. And you always have that person. Around this person, I can say anything I want, and then there's another person you like. There's a few things I probably wouldn't
Let's
say
say.
about that person.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what is it about this person? Like, what draws you to them? And then you can you need to understand the decisions that you're making and the actions that you're making for yourself. And once you understand that, that's like the simplest way to do it, I think. And it's almost like you're
For me, you're refining yourself, it's like each and every single time, it's like having a proper dirty white t-shirt, right? And you wash it the first time, you're like, okay, you see these stains, and then you wash it a second time, you're like, oh, you start seeing distinct stains from maybe, I don't know, I remember that stains from like red wine with a go red wine with my
yeah,
mates, and then you see a curry stain and you're like, oh yeah, da da da, and like, I don't know where this came from, but then you wash it again, and it's like it's getting clearer and clearer and clearer, and then until hopefully you use some Vanish Oxy action, which is a coach, by the way, and then sorry.
I said it's vanished the sponsor. Is that the plug?
Is that the like? Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Okay, sponsored by Vanish.
No, it'd have to be Colgate, mate. It'd have to be Colgate. It'd have to be Colgate. Yeah, like literally, it's that process sounds like refining, getting clarity, becoming clear on what components of what actions make up Washington or what actions make up Zoe. And I think you've broken them down so that you've broken down that analysis so freaking well, because it's like you can literally take a look at every single area of everyone's life. And I was listening to this like video recording like from the 1960s, 70s of this guy called Werner Erhard, and he was talking about like maybe what we could all consider to do is consider our life as assessment. That everything that we do in life is being assessed, and use it as us assessing each other, ourselves, rather than like a psychological assessment, but more of like a philosophical assessment of just like inquiring into like, okay, so I've done A, B, C, D. Why have I picked up that book, like you were saying? Why is it that I withhold those things, and not seeing it as something that's psychologically right or psychologically wrong, but seeing it as something that's like, oh, that's something to be interested in. Like, why do I do that? And helping to remove the judgment out of that whole entire area of it. So, like, how do you encourage people to, I guess, remove the judgment on that area? And I know it's almost impossible at times, because like I've been through the process, and it sometimes hurts to look at some of those things that like I personally may have done or other people may have done to me as well. You know, so how would you recommend people remove or try and be as distant from the judgment towards themselves and all other people as well?
Like you said, it's really hard, right? And if I think about it with my own journey, and then also with my clients, like there's a lot of like when you get to know yourself, there's a lot of stuff that you are shining a light on that maybe you puts the back of your head, don't think about it that much. Maybe that person comes out here, and then you're so ashamed after it comes out. You try and what we do as humans usually is we try and suppress it. I know, I just don't think about it, and it will go away. And then, after a few days, other stuff happens, and you stop thinking about it. But shining a light on yourself fully, like the last couple of years, there's some like stuff that I had to be really upfront with myself about. And I had to say, oh, I didn't like that. Like, that wasn't the best part of me. Like, I wasn't a good person in this situation. I could have done better in this situation. And that is hard.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because as long as if you are starting that process of really trying to get to know yourself, like, you're on a journey, right, of trying to become a better person. And looking at yourself and really being quite brutally honest with yourself, it might, in the short run, it's going to sting, it's not going to feel good, but in the long run, it is going to be so worthwhile. And if you can just endure that pain for a little bit and endure that judgment that you have on yourself for a little bit, then in the long run, it's going to be so worthwhile. And even the word judgment, we can be very judgmental to ourselves, but judging anything or anybody, unless you're in that fight or flight mode where you actually need to for your safety, it's just a way to society thinks, right, that has made the word judgment bad. Like, if you're judging yourself in a way that is actually going to then help you become a different or better person, then really that's not a judgment, right? That's just you assessing yourself. That's just you reflecting on who you are because you want to be a bit better.
Yeah.
And I think changing language, we don't talk about changing language enough. We think that because so many people have said the word judgment for so long, and the words that people think are negative, like control, judgment, because other people say them, we think we have to say them, but that's their narrative. That's the word that society has now deemed as a bad word, and everybody rushes to that. Everyone's like, oh, control's a bad word, judgment's a bad word, but actually it's just how you use it. If you control if you're controlled in a positive way, that's not negative. If you're trying to control somebody and make them do things that you want them to do, yeah, that's bad. But if you're trying to control the way that you react, or you're trying to control the person who you are sometimes, and try and be a better person and control some of the behaviours you have and the emotions you have, that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
But we just think it's a negative thing because everybody's told us it's a negative thing. We've grown up thinking it's a negative thing. And those words are used a lot in media, right? And they're used a lot in such a negative way that we latch onto that. But you have to try and think about things in a way that's going to work for you. And I talk to my clients about this all the time. There's so much out there to help people. There's so many tips, there's so many quotes, there's so many ways of doing things, so many techniques. A scientist is saying you should do it this way, a psychotherapist is saying it this way, a coach is saying you should do it that way. you don't actually have to follow everything by the T. Like, look at these different things and think, oh, actually, I like what Zoe said a little bit. Cool, I'm going to take that. I liked what Washington said a little bit. I'm going to take a bit of that. And actually, I listened to this podcast and I heard somebody talk about that. And actually, I liked a bit of that. And then you can bring that all together and be like, okay, I've got these like 3 things that I've seen other people do that I kind of like the look of. How can I make it more me, and how can I make it fit me more?
Yeah.
We don't have to fit into these boxes all the time. Like, if you want to experiment with things, experiment with them, and you'll eventually find something that kind of fits. And once it fits and it feels more you, it's going to be like far more easy to like maintain anyway and keep a habit off.
Yeah, so 100%. I couldn't have thought of any truer words. With what you're sharing just now, it really, really takes me to like what I've been having conversations about in my personal life with a couple of my friends, which is that the things that will consume, what I've been noticing, that the things that some people are consuming, they become they become a replica of the things that they're consuming. So their thoughts no longer become themselves, their own. They start borrowing thoughts from other people. They start borrowing, not they're borrowing thoughts, sorry, they start borrowing their identity from someone else. And I'd love for you to maybe speak on how you can develop your own identity whilst actually still taking a bit from everyone else, like you've just shared, and what it means to have your own persona, what it actually, and what type of control and what type of power that gives you as well, you know? Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I think there's when you're thinking about like creating your own identity, like there's a lot of pressure, right? Because it feels like once you've created this identity, you have to kind of stick with it, and people will remember you for that person. So you put so much time and effort into like working out who that is. But your identity, like, it evolves so much. It evolves daily. Like, my identity since I was younger has changed so much. Like, I feel like over the last maybe over the last year, I've really started to understand some of the foundation of my identity. And that's wrapped up though in like what my values are, like the people I like being around, like my purpose, like what I want out of my life. Like, those things at the moment aren't going to change, but who knows, in like a year's time, my values might completely change, and that foundation might completely change as well. And I think like when you think about your own identity, you have to like think it's a fun thing to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like you can be really playful with it. Like, I think we've just forgotten how to play and forgotten how to be silly, and if you really want to like experiment with like what your identity is, you have to try and, you know, put yourself in situations a bit out of your comfort zone. You have to get to know yourself. You have to ask yourself questions, and it doesn't really matter if it's hard. It's hard, right? If the people who are around you are a certain type of identity and you feel like you don't fit in there, and you know, we're only limited by what we can see.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't, that's a stepping stone, right? At least if you know you don't want your identity to be, that's a good stepping stone as well.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I guess like the only things I can say around like, building your identity and working out who you are is that it's never a finished piece. Like, you're always going to be trying to work out who you are because things change so much. So I try not to get stuck too much on the outcome. As long as it feels like authentic to you at the time and you feel comfortable, I think that's the 2 things we've got to aim for. It's like, do I feel comfortable? Do I feel authentic? Do I feel like I'm really actually like being who I should be, and speaking how I want to speak, and dressing how I want to dress, and acting and sounding and feeling like a real sense of self? I think those are the 2 things you need to aim for, because we change so much. you meet so many different people. Like you can have one opinion about something in the morning, you can then have a meeting with somebody and have a completely different opinion. You can like watch a TikTok, you can watch it, listen to a podcast now, and actually like everything that you thought before can actually change. So try not to get like too like held up, and actually that's quite exciting because you're always going to be learning more. You're always going to be having different experiences. Even if you're like you walk to the same office every day, like there's going to be different things. There's different people that walk past you. There's going to be different shops that open up eventually. There's going to be different things going on. So there's always going to be different experiences that happen in around you. And I think you just got to be ready to. You just got to be comfortable with the fact that it is always going to change. But building like a strong foundation now, starting with what just really feels real, what you feel really comfortable, and it should feel easy. Like it should feel easy to be your authentic self. It's obviously easier said than done, but that's how I think you know when you're the most authentic part of you, because you're probably the most relaxed and you're not thinking about it. I think aim for that.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. Thank you so much for that, because that actually speaks a lot of volumes, because I think on a self-discovery journey, personal development journey, of course, like we talk about how difficult it is to be able to overcome your fears, how difficult it is to change patterns and break patterns. But like if you are, I guess, doing it the right way for you, or in a space that's the right way for you, it's a journey that allows a certain level of ease, a certain level of comfort in, or should I say reassurance, in that actually internally you're like, oh, I am doing the right thing. And I felt that consistently throughout my journey. I was like, oh, fuck that, I don't want to do this. But like I felt so right. I felt so good about doing the task my coaches asked me to do, and so on and so forth. So I'm just really thinking about, so you talked about authenticity, you talked about, you stepped into, like people being curious about the feelings within their body, and really what's going on in their world. And to me, you seem like someone who's just about you. I'll help you figure it out. I'll help you come to that conclusion. And I think that your online content reflects that so well, and I just really would love to, I guess I may have already given away the answer, but like what encouraged you to make content in a way that is so like it's actually really out there? It's like you use slang in your content, like you really, like I relate to your content so much, and it's really powerful. So I just want to know what made you think that actually I'm going to come at it with this approach, and also what is your aim / intention for your content as well?
So I always wanted to, I can't be like anybody else. Like I find it really hard to try and be something that I'm not. And I think especially when I was younger, there was so many times that I was made to feel that I should sound a little bit more posh, or I should use words that were a bit like more longer words or bigger words, and I should always watch this, and I should always watch this, and actually, you know, you should approach things like this because this is how things are approached here. And even like, I'm from Bristol, but I don't have a Brazilian accent anymore, because my college teacher said to me when we were talking about what I wanted to do after college, and I was like, I want to like move to London. And she was like, "Oh, you need to drop your accent if you want to leave Bristol, because no one will take you seriously." And it's things like that. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So like, I tried to like not have a Brazilian accent. And when I say things like grass and bath, like I think you can tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I'll go for a bath. And then I got into like some jobs that just after uni that just weren't really right for me, and I was around people that I'd never really been around before, and they would always tell me, "Oh, no, you shouldn't speak like that. You should use this word," and "Oh, you know, you can't use that word in this office," and I don't know, I'd say like some sort of slang word or whatever, or a shortened word, and then someone would be like, "Oh, you're not one of those people, are you?" He uses that word, and I was just like so fed up when I was younger. And then I was just, I felt I should be a certain way, and I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like that feeling of like having to be that person. And when I started making content, I did notice that a lot of the content that's out there around like coaching and like well-being is all quite fluffy. And fluffy works for some people, right? Like, and I'm not saying that, but it never resonated to me. It never resonated with me, and I always wanted to make content that resonated with me because I couldn't find the content I was kind of like looking for. So I think when I started making content, I wanted to try and not be fluffy because it wasn't my style. And I just wanted to basically speak how everybody speaks day to day. Like, I don't get when people like are on their like business voices or when they're like, do you know what? I don't get it. I'm actually so confused. I'm like, what the hell? And they're like, when an important guest is coming or whatever, and they're like, okay, behave and like make sure you look like this and like, put your nice jacket on and I'm just like, why? Like, why? That's not you though. Like, why don't you just show up as like who you are? And it always confused me. And especially with like business politics, like, this is the way you approach it, and you should approach it like this.
Oh, don't get me started with that.
White man in a suit that said that we should do that, and we're still following that. Like, I don't get it. Like, I've never got it, and I've never really like stuck to those norms and those pathways. I've always tried to be like, actually, that I don't think that doesn't come natural to me. And if it came natural to me, then I would do it. But it's that's something natural to me. So my way has always just been speaking how I speak, like to my mate. And I speak to everybody the same. So I speak to like my best friend. I speak to my clients. Like I never really use like much like coaching or like psychology jargon unless I'm explaining something. I always use the language that I use because I feel that there's an audience out there that need that and would relate to that. And don't get me wrong, there's probably some like people that would not want to be coached by me because maybe I'm not as professional as this person, and that's okay. And I'm happy with the way that I do because my content is just me speaking about what I'm feeling or what I think it would be beneficial for people to know. I'm not there to be like, this is polished me because I'm not polished at all. And I don't use like big words anyway. So I just like to keep it short and snappy.
I love that. Thank you. That's like, it speaks to who you are and it shows through authentically. And it's so important to be able to like distill, refine, get closer to your voice, whatever the word is, because that's the only way other people will be able to hear you, and that's the only way you know yourself that you're actually speaking clearly, that you're thinking clearly, and like you're really out there in the world. So I wanted to ask you, is there one message or is there a message that you would like to have, that you want to share that you haven't yet shared, or if you have, great. Is there another one?
I've got so many that come to mind. That's one there.
Well, let me ask you this. I'll ask you the question differently. What's your number one guiding principle to life?
Oh, that's a question. The one that like springs to mind is that life can actually be really shit sometimes. Like it can. Like we can't control anything, and that's not what we can't control those things that happen to us. And I think we've got to try and be as present as we possibly can. I think that's the thing that's changed my life the most. is trying to be present in that day, in that moment, and being present, especially with like, the people around you, and respecting, you know, if you're meeting up with somebody for coffee, like being really present with them, or you know, if you're deciding you just want to go for a run, like just being trying to be present with it, being present and just trying to have fun when you can, because when those shit times come, it's really hard to try and have fun because you're in survival mode and you can't get through things. So those moments of like bliss when everything's going well, or you're with somebody who makes you laugh loads, or it, you know, gives you like a good feeling, like really just like be present with that moment and try and have fun in that moment. And try and have fun throughout the day. Like, it doesn't matter, even if you've got like a really serious job, like you still have to kind of keep yourself like mentally stable, and it's still your life. Like, you've got to try and have fun when you can. So be present as much as you possibly can, because in that moment, especially when things are really good, like there are waves in it. The next wave's going to come. That wave might be good again. That wave might not be good. So just enjoy that while you can. And when those like bad waves do come, just remember that those good ones are going. You've got to stay present.
Thank you.
Present and have fun.
Present and have fun. Those are bagging life principles. Bagging life principles. And I've got two final questions for you. The first one is, this whole entire project is based on the principle that I believe that we're all unlimited, and that we can, as you were sharing earlier, we can continue to recreate ourselves. So I'd like you to use this opportunity to actually recreate yourself in the future of who it is you are becoming, and then secondly, what you think is going to become of the world as well.
Okay, so I want to be somebody who, I want to be that person, yeah, that like has a really like welcoming family home vibe, where like everybody wants to drop in. Like people want to come around for a coffee, people want to come around for a chat, whether they're feeling good, whether something bad's come in, them just knowing that like my house is the hub, and if they come through for a cup of tea, for a pint, I don't know, a glass of wine, whatever, some food, that it will always be like welcomed with a lot of warmth and more of like a community vibe, right? That's how like I love myself and see myself becoming. And the world, do you know what? I actually would have, just before I came in to record with you, I was talking to one of the girls in my co-working space, and she was telling me some mad stuff about AI. So I think the world is going to turn into some mad, tech, scary place. what my friends just told me, like, it's mad. That's actually how I think the world, like, the stuff she was telling me was really shocking. So it's really scary. It's like the head of Google product X basically did a podcast, and he was saying about like how dangerous and how scary it is, the AIs that we're building, and one day they're going to take over.
Wow.
So that's actually now where I think the world's going to go. But I mean, to leave it like a nicer note, the way I think the world is going, I have a lot of like faith that people are really tapping in to themselves and are understanding that actually, if they don't want to feel a certain way anymore, there are potential ways they can get out of this feeling. And I think for society as a whole, I hope that that's going to make the place a little bit nicer. But I mean, there's loads of contradictions to that. I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's where I think the world's going. That's what I'd like to think anyway, that more people are becoming more aware and people are being more aware about what their actions and how their actions impact other people. And I'd love for people to really start understanding that and making changes in themselves, because we can only fight the bigger battles if us as individuals are thinking about it. So apart from the whole world being taken over by AI, that must sound really random, but like just before I came in here, my friend was like, "Oh my god, you have to listen."
AI is taking over the world.
And I was like, "You're scaring me." As I came in here. But yeah, I think I'd like to think I'd like the world to be become a place where people just think about their actions.
Amazing. Listen, Zoe, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for that scary AI story. That's so funny. And I'm going to keep that in. 100% authentic, real, fresh, original.
I think you might need another podcast.
Let's do it, man. I'm really keen to talk about it. I'll leave it. I've got a friend who studies at Oxford in neuroscience, and he's actually aiming on trying to re-simulate consciousness within the mind to see what awakening in the mind, to see what neurons or whatever in the brain get stimulated to actually be able to stimulate someone being able to actually become more conscious, more aware of themselves, and yada yada yada. So don't worry, there is some hope in the world, because there are people working on, I guess, a faster awakening, and I'm not too sure how I feel about it too much, but it sounds good to me.
Great. Is that to do? That's probably to do with AI, right? And what, just to give you a one-liner, that obviously ago,
yeah,
and this for hours. But basically, the head of Google, guys, this is like an announcement to the world. The head of Google basically said that the AI we're building is so intelligent that it is actually becoming more intelligent than us. And what will happen is that these different AIs will start having cyber wars, and they'll start taking over, and we won't be able to stop it, because the AI is more intelligent
than us,
and we can fathom what they can do because our brain doesn't do any work to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Basically, already kind of taking over, and he was like, "There's a serious problem," and he said, "No one's listening." And I want him to know, if he's listening to this podcast, I am listening to him.
Yeah, I am listening too. I've watched Terminator, do you know what I mean? So, yo. But listen, Zoe, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can have another chat about AI, robots, and whatever else is going on in the world. But once again, thank you.
Thank you. It's actually really therapeutic. So
awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing it back.
Awesome.